The front pages of Monday morning's newspapers around the nation heavily redacted, a strong visual impact and strong show of unity. Peter Wilkinson, why is it so?
It's organised by Australia's Right to Know Coalition, and it's to bring to the public's attention the information that the public isn't getting. It's about journalist freedom. So there's been a strong repression of journalist freedom brought to light by the AFP raids. And the importance of it is the consequential impact on the public not getting access to information. And this is a visual demonstration of that.
Now, journalists don't have the greatest reputation. Why should people care?
That's right. If you say, what do you think of journalists? Oh, they make mistakes and a bunch of ratbags and spend too much time at the pub, which, by the way, it might have been true once. It's not true anymore with the pressure that journalists are under. But on the other hand, if you say, is it important that the 7:30 Report story that a few days ago exposed the cruelty to racehorses in abattoirs, or is it important to know about the Afghan files, or is it important to catch corrupt politicians or expose misbehaviour of sporting stars, rugby league? Go journos, we want more of this. This is really important. It's the only way to stop it. So that's why it's important that the public is alerted to what's going on, because it brings high profile people in power or sporting stars and the like to heel.
Exactly, it holds them to account. Now, the government has introduced around 75 pieces of legislation on this since 2001. That's an extraordinary amount.
Yeah, so that's to reinforce security in Australia with a consequential impact on journalist freedom. I believe it's actually more than 75. It depends how you count it. The point there is that everyone wants a secure country. That's an essential part of a democracy, to live with safety. But another essential part is that you know what's going on, that we all know what's going on, and that journalists are free to keep people in power in check. And it's not one or the other, is the contention of the Australians' Right to Know Coalition and the organisation I'm chair of, the Alliance for Journalist Freedom.
This is a topic that you're hugely passionate about, and you're doing something about it. Tell us about your role.
So the Alliance for Journalist Freedom was set up after Peter Grester was released from jail. I think most people remember Peter Grester really well. He's a prominent Australian journalist, jailed in Cairo for 400 days. I was asked by his family to help get him out of jail, and so myself and a senior partner from Gilbert and Tobin, a high-profile legal firm, worked with DFAT and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and then Foreign Minister Julie Bishop to mount the campaign to get Peter out of jail. And we got journalists around the world involved. We actually got President Obama to pitch to President El-Sisi on 3 occasions. And finally we got Peter out of jail. So that was the origins of the Alliance for Journalist Freedom. And the Alliance for Journalist Freedom, as the name implies, is all about changing legislation in Australia to reinforce journalist freedom, the public's right to know, as well as, when we need to, campaigning in Asia.
You spoke at the Senate Standing Committee in Canberra last week. What were the main points to come out of that?
So our main points were, besides this, the public's right to know and the importance of this, the Alliance for Journalist Freedom wants 2 things. We want a Media Freedom Act, which is a counter to those many pieces of legislation you were talking about that reinforce security at the expense of journalist freedom. So it provides a buffer for a judge to balance the interests of the two where there is none. It's been an assumed right that journalists have certain access to information in Australia, unlike the United States, for instance, where press freedom is one of the 5 pillars of the First Amendment in the Constitution. The other point we made was that we want a task force that brings together the security services, media and government, so that we can sit in a room and actually work through these issues instead of arguing in the media or across Senate standing committees and those kinds of bodies, which actually cements people into opposing corners.
And where are we going with this? What's the next steps? Where are we at in the timeline of all this happening in having a formation of all of these things?
Well, the campaign to enforce the public's right to know isn't going to go away. The Alliance for Journalist Freedom has really good foundations now, and I suspect the Right to Know coalition isn't going anywhere fast. It's brought all the competing publishers together on an almost
It's unprecedented, really, isn't it? It's so rare.
Yeah, unheard of situation. So I think the campaign's going to continue. I suspect, particularly if we can get a task force set up, that we will start seeing some change. And what I don't think we'll see again is the AFP raids that happened a few weeks ago. I think that is behind us now. People have learned, people in Canberra have learned that that's not on, but there are a whole lot of other things that need to be dealt with. Things such as the suppression of the George Pell case. That is a press freedom issue. There's a raft of situations that the public may not be aware of in detail, but are fundamental to this right to know.
Peter, a huge topic. Thanks for your work on this and what you're doing and for your time today. Thank you.